Primal Chaos, the spiritual successor to Primal Fear, and a mod that I am very familiar with. At least I was, until it received a massive update, adding in new tiers of cosmic degenerates, ranging from world-ending nightmares to the humble Nuka Dodo. Come here, Nuka Dodo! And to make matters somehow worse, I only have 100 days to beat the entire Primal Chaos mod. Yeah, this video was nothing but pure pain. On day 1, I spawned in on the easier beach location and was greeted by a family of very healthy dodos. I've been maxing out. What is with the I then proceeded to do the standard Ark stuff by abusing this tree for some wood, grabbed some stone off the shore, and drank some free-range seawater. Delicious. With my body now thoroughly hydrated, I crafted some basic tools, foraged some berries, made a campfire, crafted myself a reusable spear, and waged war against the dodo population. Oh my. Now that I had some hide, I was feeling real good about myself, so I decided to pick a fight with this cool looking parasaur, and it went as well as you expected it to. Thankfully, I was able to grab my stuff back, and after spiritually assaulting this palm tree, I made myself a perfectly cooked steak, and made some cloth clothing. Everything was going great. Then this happened. What? Oh! So, if any of you are curious as to why a roided out jerboa just yeeted me out of existence, that was a mythic jerboa, a tier 6 dino that really does not like me. So after my third attempt at life, I decided to get my daily cardio in, continue to assault this very large rock, and started crafting some cooking pots for some easy XP. And that's because a lot of the more OP items in this mod require me to get to level 70 as fast as possible, but making that many cooking pots would take way too long, and also my attention span is equal to a goldfish. So after making a prehistoric version of a gun, I decided to have a rematch with the toxic parasaur. Well, that happened. And now I have some toxic blood and hide. Must have spent too much time on Reddit. Anyways, now that I have established that I am the ruler of this very small island, I continued to terrorize the locals, gave some rocks the good old smackin', built a raft, and started an epic building montage. And as the sun rose on day 3, my mobile base was fully completed and in pristine box-looking form. So to celebrate this glorious achievement, I made myself a primal forge and a primal smithy, so I can start actually progressing in this mod. But before I can start playing around with the modded items, I first needed some metal. So I gave these river rocks a good old smackdown, yeeted the metal right into the forge, turned the dilo into a prehistoric pin cushion, and spotted one of the main bosses of the mod, a origin wyvern flying menacingly across the sky. This was bad, because if at any point it gets even a whiff of my primal fear, my entire hopes and dreams will be gone. So I carefully made my way past the winged menace, farmed more metal, and ended off day 3 by making a crossbow. On the morning of day 4, I found this rock that had a chunky amount of metal, so I rushed on back home to my floating fortress to get it smelting, and started taming the friendly neighborhood Mosschop, who had a craving for some of the basic berries. And after waiting 5 centuries for him to get his appetite back, the Moschops decided that now it wants to be picky. Thankfully, I knew of a way I could acquire the rarest of mushrooms. All I had to do was give these crystals the good old smackin', and found some rare mushrooms hiding underneath them. So I climbed down the mountain, fed this gem gentleman 500 calories in mountain mushrooms, and now my berry gathering needs are solved. I also had enough crystal to make some dino storage balls, which are pretty much cryopods, but they actually work, which is huge because my next objective was to start mass taming dodos, because for this mod, you need eggs. Lots of eggs, and I might as well get a head start on it. So I started to convince these feathered individuals to join my tribe, bullied this toxic Meganera for his toxic blood, lodged an arrow deep into this Dilo's frontal lobe, and made friends with the locals. On the morning of day 5, I got to work upgrading my armor by making some toxic hide. I'm not really sure if this is safe to wear at all, but it keeps me safe. Kinda. Yeah, I'm not really safe at all here. Thankfully, there is other ways I can make sure I don't get turned into a human pancake. One of those ways is the Primal grappling bow, which has infinite ammo, so I'm pretty much a low-budget version of Spider-Man now. So, using my newly acquired grappling skills, I found a Greek-looking house that was overrun by the most toxic of degenerates. So I gave the local heathens a quick lesson in the art of claw-to-pike combat, bullied a toxic Phiomia for existing, and once again, challenged a toxic Parasaur, and ended the same as usual. But once I was done sprinting across the entire eastern seaboard, I was able to grab my stuff, ended this Lystro's free trial of life, and spent the next 20 minutes sailing across the very peaceful ocean in search of a base spot. My first idea was to build in this cool looking cavern, but I quickly decided against that terrible idea, and decided to grapple up onto this cool looking plateau, and began an epic base building montage. Is he floating? This game is incredible. Absolutely no bugs at all. Moving on from the gravity-defying aloe, I needed to get more metal so I can make more modded items. So I grappled on over to the mountain, spiritually assaulted this metal node, got back home, and started laying the foundation of a successful farming career. It wasn't looking too great at the moment, but one thing that could help me out is a Phiomia and their fecal expertise. So after making some wooden foundations, I had my friendly neighborhood Moschops help me gather some seeds for my soon-to-be farm, acquired some free-range stool from my dodos, and started my career as a farmer, once I'm no longer in danger of turning into a human popsicle. But on the morning of day 7, I tilled my crops like a man, assaulted this boulder for some stone, but when I came back to base, the rock was still there. I tried working around the physics-defying rock, but not gonna lie, my OCD was not happy right now. And to make matters somehow worse, my dodo's free trial of life was ended by the wings of a mythic PT. Well, there goes my egg farm now. Fantastic. As you could imagine, I wasn't exactly thrilled about this development, and when I tried removing this purple gentleman from the premises, it didn't exactly work out for me. So, in crippling defeat, I sailed along the beach to recruit a new squad of egg-laying specimens who definitely will not be getting deleted by prehistoric Barney. But unfortunately for me, this only seemed to anger the game, and in retaliation for my taming of the dodos, the game deleted half my boat. Well, that's just great. Once I was back home, I continued to get reminded of how great Ark's coding is, and spent the rest of day 7 doing some base work and failing to be a farmer. I started off day 8 by making a modest amount of trank arrows, with the goal of taming a toxic PT. Toxic dinos are the lowest tier of dino in this mod, and eventually I'm going to need to tame a lot of them for egg-laying purposes, but for the time being, my main goal was to find a better source of fecal matter. So I used my handy-dandy dino finder to check around to see if there was any Phiomias, but of course there was nothing. So I grabbed 6 whole carrots from my low-budget farm, crafted the most toxic of kibble, and now I had everything ready to tame a toxic PT. And thanks to this non-cheaty dino finder, there just so happened to be a level 145 PT just chilling near my base. So I ran on over to the toxic specimen, shot it with a bedtime story right between the eyes, fed it some daily rations, and now I finally have myself a toxic PT. Things were finally going my way, and day 9 continued this trend because thanks to this Phiomia that I forgot to show me taming, I can now finally start making some fertilizer. However, there was one small issue. I needed more toxic hide. So using my perfectly square raft, I set sail on a quest for more toxic hide. But like always, the game had other plans. What? Okay, does this game have like something against dodos, or does it just want me to suffer? Because now I have to go abduct, I mean recruit more dodos to join my tribe. And honestly, I'm starting to think I should just move base locations, because this area is, well, not very visitor friendly right now. So after avoiding the very scary looking boss and making it back home, it was now time to go collect some toxic hide.
Oh, what the fuck?
Alright, back to the boat.
You son of a bitch!
Get off. And once I was done collecting enough toxic hide, thanks to these willing volunteers, I returned home and made the toxic PT saddle, packed up all my stuff, and searched for a different base location that wasn't occupied by physics-defying rocks and aerial degenerates. And after flying halfway across the map, I ended up back at the original Greek house I saw earlier. It was closed off, and there was also no way any flying vermin could harm my dodos. So after spending 5 minutes giving the local foliage the 1-2 combo, I was able to build a sturdy stone wall to keep out all the local heathens. On day 12, I decided to put my PT strength to the test, and this man's bench press is pretty good. But once I was done admiring the strength of this very green individual, I spent the morning of day 12 assembling my greenhouse, because in order to make any kibble in this mod, I'm gonna have to channel my inner farmer. The only problem stopping me though is not only do I have to cleanse my Phiomius colon, but I also have to wait 15 minutes just for one fertilizer. I could always try to find a dung beetle inside one of the caves on the map, but considering this is modded Ark, I'd rather not go in the caves. The one thing I will do, however, is bully this toxic ninja turtle, because I can always use more toxic hide. Once I was done being a menace to society, I went on my 3rd dodo taming spree in this video, and this time I was finally able to integrate the dodos into the handy-dandy egg collector, which I forgot to show me making. Professional YouTuber, ladies and gentlemen. Gosh, I'm terrible at this. On the morning of day 13, I looted this yellow drop that had some questionable loot, and also witnessed World War X going on in the background. Fun times. Moving on from that, me and my unnamed PT decided to do a inquisition on the local beaver dams because I really needed cementing paste. Like, a lot. Fortunately for the beavers, I had other plans than just being a menace to the beaver population. The main one being finishing my greenhouse because I really need some crops. One way that would help speed up production would be to upgrade my current tools. So after infusing some metal with the most toxic of blood, I was able to craft some toxic tools, spiritually assaulted this crystal and then put it in my pocket, and finished off day 13 by completing my greenhouse. I started off day 14 with the goal of advancing into the industrial age, which means that I had to start searching for oil like a pure blood American. Unfortunately for me, my quest for oil was halted by a wild pack of degenerates, one of them being a hydro-aloe, an elemental dino that, if it touches me, would turn me into one very dehydrated boy. Unfortunately for Mr. Aloe, only one of us has the ability of flight. With the aquatic degenerate gone, I was able to mine all the oil like a man, stole more cementing paste from the local beaver population, and picked a fight with an astral raptor. This man was very blue, and also getting these hands. All in all, this was lining up to be the easiest alpha kill I've ever had. Then this happened. Yeah, so I got jumped by a primal tech raptor, and to make matters somehow worse, I now have to figure out how to get my stuff back. Safe to say, it was now panic time for me, but Ark must have felt sorry for my pitiful existence and gifted me the greatest red drop ever, a whole industrial forge, and a fabricator. Things were now back on track. Kinda, because I still needed oil to make gasoline and also a new flyer. So I enlisted the services of Mr. Mosschops, harvested some narco berries, and crafted 8 toxic kibble. Then I channeled my inner Batman and grappled across the terrain, avoiding the local population of degenerates, bullied some toxic dinos for their hide, made a toxic PT saddle, and shot a bedtime story right into this man's beak. And this is when I remembered that I installed a death recovery mod, and I pretty much wasted 15 minutes for nothing. So in short, I pretty much wasted the entire day for no reason at all. And to start off day 16, I tried finding any source of oil since I pretty much cleared out all the oil nodes before I was ambushed by the most primal of degenerates. Unsurprisingly, I didn't find a single oil node, so I took to the skies, harvesting these washed up sharks that give me oil for some reason, and got some interesting loot from the supply drops. I started off day 17 by bullying the local toxic parasaur population, since they give me a good amount of hide. Then I kinda just flew around for a little while with my unnamed bird, collecting any and all supply drops for the longest of rifles, and hopefully this one won't take 60 days to find. Apparently though, my quest for the longest of rifles upset the stego population, and I was sent right back to the lobby. Fun times. Thankfully, I didn't have to worry about grabbing my stuff anymore, thanks to this very non-cheaty death recovery stone, and after organizing my items, I spent the rest of day 17 filling out the rest of my base, placing down my industrial forge, and making a fridge. On day 18, I collected my first harvest from my OSHA-approved greenhouse, and I don't mean to brag, but I just got 169 whole potatoes. I'm leveling up in the world. All jokes aside, crops are going to be a constant theme in this video, because every tier from Toxic all the way to Spirit and Chaos requires some form of crop, even some volcanic fruit. If you're still confused about the whole tier system of this mod, it's pretty much identical to Primal Fear, which means that I'm gonna have to start taming some toxic individuals if I want to break into the alpha tier. So me and my unnamed Mosschops started harvesting all the bushes, and then this happened. Alright, just kill me. This game is incredible. Anyways, once I was done being a crispy human, I made some alpha narcotics, started recruiting some toxic individuals to join my egg-laying club with a origin trike spectating in the background. Then I made myself a awesome teleporter and harvested some metal nodes because I need metal. On day 19, I started crafting more electronics and tamed a level 140 toxic trike. Then I continued my quest to tame even more toxic dinos for egg-laying purposes, collected the daily cementing paste tax from the local beavers, and launched my crusade against the astral dinos, which are pretty much the map's version of alpha dinos, which means that there's a chance to get a good long neck rifle. And shockingly for me, I did end up getting a blueprint for one, but it wasn't exactly the greatest. So I started a crusade against any and all astral dinos, hoping to get a better long neck rifle, but after 5 minutes of pure nothing, I decided to craft the longest of rifles and made some alpha trank darts. Day 20 started off with me and my newly tamed trike harvesting several tons of narco berries, crafted some alpha kibble, shot a bedtime story into this PT's frontal lobe, and tamed my first alpha dino. This was a massive step up from the toxic tier, and after making the alpha pteranodon saddle, I tamed another alpha PT just in case Mr. Dragon wants to deep fry me again. And this turned out to be my best idea yet, because not even 5 minutes later, my alpha PT was turned into a boneless wing at the hands of a demonic monkey. Fun times. Thankfully, I had plenty of backup PTs, so I just flew around for a little while, found another high-level alpha bird, knocked it out, and fed it 5,000 calories of kibble right down the esophagus. The start of day 21 was spent watching this monkey wage war against reality itself. Then I bullied this astral raptor, which gave me an insane long neck rifle, and flew 500 miles towards the north in search of a toxic RG. I could just tame a regular RG to help me with metal, but that would be boring. Besides, with this man's health, he might actually be useful to fight some alpha dinos instead of being a glorified forklift. So I started shooting this man right in his feathered face, fed him the most toxic of kibble, and stopped an attempted assassination by this very yellow dilo. Then I started spiritually assaulting these obsidian nodes, crafted some polymer, turned it into an elevator track, and demoed some elevator platforms for the easiest metal of my life. Yeah, if you couldn't tell, the loot drops in this game are kind of busted, but I kind of like the OP stuff, especially when it comes to the modded dinos like this Alpha Anki, who should help speed up my metal production by 50 times over. So once I was done taming my new spiky friend, I flew 200 miles towards the north because I needed some silica pearls, and there was a cave that had silica pearls. You see where this is going? Yeah, so I pretty much spent 5 minutes doing some cave swimming, collecting some pearls from these oversized clams, and teleported back home where I had the unfortunate pleasure of seeing a flaming monkey right outside my base. And since I really don't want a repeat of previous experiences, I shot some bedtime stories right into this monkey's head, and while luring him away from my base, I ran into a nightmare trike, a tier 11 boss that could send me to the Shadow Realm just by breathing too hard. But this is where I had one of my very few big brain ideas, which involved getting Mr. Nightmare Trike and the Flamin' Monkey to have a duel with each other, which ended up getting me deleted from existence. But I wasn't giving up, so me and my unnamed PT flew on back over, did some 360 no-scopes to provoke the oversized monkey, and watched as my plan unfolded. What? What is that attack? Oh gosh. Yeah, I kinda deserve that one, to be honest. But it doesn't matter now, because not only did I get rid of the oversized degenerate, but I also got some very good loot. So I tried the same exact plan with this demonic dodo, and my plan went perfectly. Back at base, I deposited my spoils of war. Then I spent some time admiring the beautiful landscape, and apparently that somehow upset the local manticore population, who sent a angelic manticore to end my existence. Well, there goes another PT. Awesome. Luckily for me, I have plenty of spares. And to start off day 23, I gave this toxic dilo his daily rations, shot a trank dart into this parasaur's frontal lobe, gave it the most toxic of kibble, and flew on over to the north in search of some penguins. However, it seemed like the penguin population must have gotten wind of my impending visit, because when I got to the north, there was no penguins to be found. I've been bamboozled. So, in crippling defeat, I decided to return home, and after sending these toxic dinos to the egg collector, I found this toxic doed curled up in a ball, and I really could use a better way to harvest stone. So, to keep things brief, I pretty much spent the next 15 minutes waiting for Mr. Doed to stop being a scaredy cat, and once it was clear that this man was not going anywhere, I decided to just tame a different doed that wasn't afraid of his own shadow. And once this spiky gentleman was all tamed up, I started off day 25 by just flying around aimlessly, and as luck would have it, I just so happened to find a max level alpha RG. So I shot this man right in his feathered beak, which made Mr. RG very sleepy, and after feeding this man some high quality alpha kibble, the alpha RG was mine. Back at base, I checked in on my egg production, and things were looking pretty good. So to celebrate this, I gave my RG some XP potions, got his health over 40,000 by the way, and started mining all the stone with my new toxic doed. Once I was done collecting the beach's overdue stone tax, I finished covering my base with stone foundations and adding some extra security to keep out the local heathens from entering my base. So, now that I have built the most impenetrable wall in existence, my newly tamed RG and I went on a massive metal run with the help of my unnamed ankylo. And once we were done waging a one-man and bird war on all metal nodes, I got to work smelting over 10,000 pounds of raw metal, and started off day 27 by building a wall around my greenhouse. Once I was done building the greatest wall to have ever been built, I tried to break into the elemental tier by recruiting these volcanic raptors to lay eggs for me, but little did I know the volcanic raptors had a Uno reverse card, and instead I was turned into a well-done survivor. Thankfully, I can respawn as many times as I want, and after using the advanced technique known as grappling hooks, I was able to safely tame my first elemental dino, waged war against this Hydro Rex for his hide, and started off day 28 by knocking out this level 140 Hydro Rex. This was a massive step up from my previous tames because I was going to use this aquatic specimen to make an army of Hydro Dinos to fight the Volcanic Guardian. So after spending 5 minutes shooting trank darts right into this Rex's forehead, gave this Hydro Rex 500 calories in kibble, had my subscription to life ended by a roided out bird, and when I respawned, I was treated to a live viewing of World War 10,000 right outside my base. Fun times. Thankfully, my Hydro Rex was unharmed by the nuclear apocalypse happening 50 feet away from me, and on the morning of day 29, I hunted down as many Hydro Dinos as I could, cause I'm gonna need all the Hydro hide. Once I was done with that, I challenged this Astral Rex to a 1v1 duel with my Alpha RG, and thanks to my aerial superiority, I was able to put this mere mortal in a spin cycle and gain one singular level. I love this game. Anyways, I continued my assault on any and all astral dinos, trying to get a better long neck rifle to help make taming these higher tier dinos easier. I also raided some local beaver dams to remind them who really runs this Ark, pulled some 360 no-scopes on an electric RG for some elemental hide, and collected some silica pearls from these oversized clams. Back at base, I continued to make more electronics, did some reorganizing since my OCD was acting up, and was finally able to craft the chemistry bench. This was huge because now I can start finally mass producing gunpowder, which I'm going to need a ton of because in this mod there isn't any origin arrows like Primal Fear. So after committing some casual deforestation to get some charcoal, I started crafting over 500 simple rifle ammo, farmed some narcoberries to craft some elemental narcotics, and made 45 elemental trank darts. We in the big leagues now, boys. Well, actually, we're not. So I guess I gotta step things up a little. And one way to help with that goal is to tame another high-level Hydro Rex, so I can start building an army. And thanks to the elemental darts I made earlier, knocking out this female Hydro Rex was the easiest thing I've ever done. And after feeding this Rex some Hydro Kibble right down the esophagus, my new Hydro Rex was tamed, and that is some good melee. Back at base, I introduced the two new love birds to each other, and they're gonna be busy for a little while. So while waiting for some fertilized eggs, I decided to become a barber, or at least try to, because I could not figure out a way to cut my own hair. That's that -2 IQ coming in clutch for me. In all seriousness, I was trying to cut my hair because for some reason you need 50 human hair to craft a nanny. So I decided to abandon my dreams of becoming the world's best barber, grab this red drop while there was a civil war going on, and then grabbed this purple drop that had 72 pelt, which is the exact amount I needed to craft the nanny. So once I was back home, I was finally able to craft the nanny, which means that I no longer have to be at base to raise my dinos. Parent of the year right here. Anyways, I finally started to bring some Hydro Rexes into the world, bullied some Hydro Dinos for their hide, 1v1'd a Fabled PT for some big profit, and crafted a Hydro Rex saddle. Then I set up my newly hired nanny, paying her an average 2 cents per hour, and started taming an electric griffin, because having a dino that's insanely fast and also I can shoot off the back of would make taming dinos so much easier. Unfortunately, this griffin seems to have the attention span of a doorknob, because the man kept trying to fight anything in a 2-foot radius, but eventually I was able to shoot this man with a bedtime story, gave it some soggy kibble, and now I have the fastest flyer in the game. So to celebrate this glorious achievement, I sent this electric RG to the Shadow Realm, and then my game crashed. Yay. Thankfully, the game saved after I tamed my griffin, and once I was done spiritually assaulting this Tapejara, I checked in on my egg production, crafted a modest amount of gunpowder, forged some elemental ingots, and made even more elemental trank darts. And once they were all done crafting, I tried to tame another high-level electric griffin, but I don't think the game was a fan of that. So once I relogged back into this game, regrettably, I tried once again to tame the high-level griffin and crashed again. Fun times. Okay, let's try this one more time. Fly on over, get the wandering degenerates to vacate the premises, and after several minutes of thrilling gameplay, I finally had Mr. Electric Griffin all knocked out, but he fell into the water. And to make matters even worse, when I entered the water, there were jellyfish who hated me for existing, and chased me away from the griffin. I tried my absolute best to feed this griffin his daily rations, but before I could tame it, the griffin suffocated. Yeah, I'm not having a fun time right now. So, with nothing else better to do now, I decided to head on back home and test out my newly raised Hydro Rex. But when I went to go change some of the game settings, Mr. Rex and I were transported to the Shadow Realm. Can this game not break for like 5 seconds? Even when I logged back in, things weren't better, because for some reason my Rex seemed to struggle with the art of moving forward. Can this game not break for like 5 seconds? But I guess it is what it is. Rex. So ignoring the fact that my Rex is stuck in time, I continue to rain havoc upon the population of degenerates, and it feels so good to finally have an actual strong dino. Add in the fact that Hydro Dinos have the unique ability to make dinos forget how to breathe, and I'm starting to like my chances against the Guardians. So to start off day 34, my Rex and I traveled across the island, informing the locals that their free trial of life has expired, and getting my Rex over 200k health. Someone's been taking their vitamins. But ignoring my Rex's very high health pool, the only thing left for me to do now is to finish raising my Hydro Rex army. So cue the montage. No, I knew it.
Come on over here. Come on over here. No, you flipped me off.
What? Well, that was eventful, and also a complete waste of time, because half of the dinos I tamed couldn't even lay eggs, and the only cool thing I did was tame another volcanic iguana. Moving on, I started off day 37 by hunting down some Hydro Dinos for their hide, because those saddles aren't gonna build themselves. So I spent the next 5 minutes being a menace to society, raided some beaver dams for the crime of not giving me cementing paste, 1v1'd a shadow turkey, which didn't end well for it, and tamed a volcanic raptor. Oh!
What the hell?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna stay away from that one. Once I was done spiritually assaulting this jerboa for some big profit, I continued my crusade on the mythic dinos cause I need them potions, witnessed the spirit trike send a heathen to the shadow realm, and then my game crashed. Fantastic. Back at base, I checked in on my Hydro Rexes and started to level up my Rexes for the upcoming fight that may or may not wipe out 99% of them. Also, for some reason, my settings got changed to where the imprint bonus wasn't working, but I do end up fixing this later, so, yeah. Anyways, once I was done being a terror to society, I decided to become an even bigger terror to the locals, and removed these electric dodo rexes from the premises. Then I made this Fable trike forget how to breathe, and started off day 39 by picking up my primal smithy, because there was this very fun glitch going on, which made me unable to use any of my structures without picking them up and putting them down. Gosh, this game is so much fun. But in brighter news, I did manage to end off day 39 by taming another high-level electric griffin, and on the morning of day 40, I engaged in a 1v1 duel with the most mythical of Bronto, and after removing the oxygen from this Bronto's body, I harvested all the mythical blood I will ever need, and continued my conquest of the mythical dinos, because I really wanted to start making some mythical trainers trank darts, which are 25 times the strength of a normal trank dart. I also upgraded my armor to the mythical tier, which gave me a whole lot of stat buffs. So once I was done admiring my newfound powers, and gathered up all my Hydro Rexes because it was time to face my first Guardian. It's taken me almost 40 days to get to this point, and if I fail this fight, I might not even complete the challenge. Everything hinges on me beating this volcanic Guardian. So I think it's time to quit stalling, and let's get this show on the road. There we go. Get here, boys! Oh, it is a... So... that was quick, and also 99% of my army has been turned into a crispy Rex. But hey, we did it, and for my reward, I got my very own tameable Guardian summon and volcanic seeds, which I need in order to grow volcanic fruit for the higher tier kibbles. So once I was done helping Mr. Fiomia clean out his colon, I started to make even more fertilizer, found a isolated island 10 feet from my base, and started taming my own volcanic Guardian. Oh. Yo. Ark, thank you. Now all I gotta do is not somehow mess this up, shoot 50 bedtime stories right into this man's forehead, feed it the most high quality kibble, and now I have achieved true power. Just look at that damage. This man is a true unit. And you know what? I think I'll just fight the Electric Guardian right now. Well, that was easy. Granted, the boss was level 20, and if he was a higher level, things might have gone differently. But it is what it is. And now, the next thing I needed to do was tame my very own Electric Guardian without being nuked from orbit. So my unnamed griffin and I spent the next 10 minutes doing some 360 no-scopes, teleported back to base to grab some elemental kibble, but when I returned to the island, there was a degenerate nibbling on the Guardian. So I sent the man right to the Shadow Realm, but unfortunately the damage was done, and when Mr. Guardian was all tamed up, he only gained 2 extra levels. Fantastic. Once I got back home, I started giving Mr. Guardian all the XP potions, and prepared to face the final elemental Guardian, who just so happened to be right on the beach. This isn't gonna end well for me. So, that was fun. I definitely did not almost lose that fight 5 times over. I have no idea what you're talking about. In better news though, now that I have beaten all the elemental guardians, I can now progress into the next tier of dinos, the Shadow and Fairy tier. There really isn't anything worth taming in this tier outside of the Fairy Wyvern and Griffin. Everything else is mainly for giving me Fairy and Shadow eggs. So with that exposition out of the way, I began day 43 by fighting one of the world bosses on the map, Thanatos. On a normal playthrough, this would have been one of the hardest bosses on the map, but since I got modded dinos, this should be a breeze. What? What? Well, that happened. I have no idea what killed me there, but whatever it was doing 6k damage per second. That's not cool. So now that I'm pretty much down my strongest tame, I enlisted the services of one of my remaining Hydrorexes, teleported back to the Island of Suffering, and spent the next 5 minutes waterboarding a Titan. My Rex was doing damage, the Titan was losing health, but I only had 3 minutes to defeat him. This could be close. Lift up your foot. Well, that was disappointing. I just lost my second strongest tame, all for a helmet skin. Fun times. Back at base, I continued to wallow in my own depression. Then I flew on over to Boss Island, summoned in the tameable Hydro Guardian, and fell even further into depression. I hate this game. So after shooting this man with all the tranq darts, I gave Mr. Guardian over 10,000 calories in kibble, and now I have myself a Hydro Guardian that I will never use the rest of this video. And that's perfectly okay with me, because in a rare show of mercy, Ark decided to give me another high-level volcanic guardian. However, the only problem is that I don't have the saddle for it, and the only way to get a volcanic guardian saddle is by beating one. But I already beat one of these guys before. How bad could it be?
That's a lot of damage.
No! Okay, let's try that again. This time around, though, let me bring some backup. Come on, we got this. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. And now that I have re-established my dominance, I raided some local beaver dams to collect some overdue taxes, and spent the rest of day 44 terrorizing the locals, collecting all their various blood types. Because for these upcoming boss fights, I'm gonna need a lot of blood. And this very ethical quest continued into day 45. I also wanted to get revenge on the Dodo Rex population for ruining my guardian tame. But once my bloodlust was satisfied for the moment, I returned to base, organized my loot because my OCD was kicking in again, tried crafting an industrial cooker, but I was short on oil. So to solve this minor issue, I went down to my greenhouse and did my business. Actually, that was a lie. It didn't solve anything. I just needed more fertilizer. To actually solve my issue, I flew off to the mountains, making sure to avoid any hostile degenerates, harvested some oil like a true-blooded American, and looted this red drop that had some questionable loot. Then I bullied this hydro aloe for the crime of existing, farmed more oil, and crafted an industrial cooker. This was huge because now I can finally start crafting my own health potions, which should help me survive more boss fights. The keyword there is hope. Moving on, in order to make the health potions I want to make, I'm going to need to do a little farming, so I got to work farming all the tinto berries in existence, and cooked up some health potions. This continued into day 46, where I rained terror upon the local berry bushes. And after I was done role-playing as the humble farmer, I started to spiritually assault some crystal, and crafted some alpha and toxic health potions. Don't know if I should drink that last one. Then I harvested some obsidian for some reason, and waged war against the local rock population for the sole purpose of gathering flint. Once I was done being a menace to society, I decided to tame this level 25 alpha kangaroo, because farming berries on a trike was too slow for my attention span to handle. So once Mr. Kangaroo was added to the squad, I crafted his saddle on the morning of day 47, gave this man a medium-sized XP potion. This is so much more efficient than using the trike, and unlike the trike, the kangaroo can also do this. Back at base, I continue to make all the narcotics in the world. Then I made some of the most toxic of kibble, and tamed this toxic mammoth that I forgot to show me knocking out. Professional YouTuber right here. Moving on from my ever-growing depression, the reason why I tamed this very furry gentleman is because I'm going to need a ton of charcoal for the amount of bullets I'm gonna craft. So having a dino that specializes in the art of wood harvesting would help speed up my production by a ton. And once I got all the wood burning, I spent the rest of day 47 and the beginning of day 48 filling out the rest of the map because my OCD was really not liking that uncompleted map. And once I was done my thrilling quest, I decided to do my favorite pastime, which is bully the local Fable dinosaurs, because I will never argue against free health potions. Oh, and I forgot to mention this, but at some point I may or may not have made Fable tools, so yeah. Anyways, once I returned home, I crafted my very first shadow and fairy kibble, and while I wasn't going to use any fairy or shadow dinos for hand-to-hand combat, I still needed them in order to progress into the next tier. But before I did any more ethical taming, I flew on over back to the Badlands because I wanted to see if there was any more world bosses spawning in, and while I was flying around, I noticed that there was a orbital supply drop just chilling in the middle of nowhere. I had no idea these things spawn in this map, but what I do know is that they can give you some very OP loot. And I did have my volcanic guardian with me. So, let's get this going. How long is this wave? Well, that was easy, but it was so worth it because not only did I get the mother of all polymer, but I also got this Ascended Fabricator Sniper BP. This thing is my ticket for taming the higher tier dinos, but I wasn't ready to build it just yet. Instead, I wanted to try my hand at a purple supply drop. However, the moment I started the drop is when everything went downhill, because right away a primal tech stego spawned in from the Shadow Realm, and every time I tried to defend the drop, I would constantly get harassed by this technological heathen. Add in the fact that Ark also decided to start having random seizures, and this was the most single annoying thing I have ever had to deal with. Can I go back to playing Elden Ring now? So as the sun rose on day 50, I tried my hand at finding another purple drop. This time around with no technological degenerate harassing me, but sadly luck was not on my side today. Shocker. So instead I went with plan B and started to mass tame these sentient Thanksgiving dinners, since they're the only dino in the shadow tier that can actually lay eggs. However, the game wasn't exactly a fan of that idea, and sent a ramshackle loot boss to assassinate me. Fun times. So now that I am effectively griffinless, I decided to drown my sorrows in making polymer. Then I teleported on over to the Badlands and made friends with the corrupted dinos. I think they really enjoy my presence here. Back at base, I finally had enough polymer to craft the very expensive rifle, so I drank this mysterious purple liquid, pumped all my levels in the crafting skill, and crafted the most OP sniper rifle to ever sniper rifle. This fine specimen is going to be my ticket to the endgame. However, in order to actually craft the trank bullets, I first had to do a small amount of berry gathering. You know, just a tad. And when I got back home, I was able to craft over 100 mythical narcotics and crafted over 100 mythical bullets. This is where the real fun starts, because I want all of you to take note that 3 bullets just did over 150k torpor. Yeah, this thing's kind of OP. So now that I had my taming situation all sorted out, I spent the rest of day 51 going on the mother of all metal runs, tamed up this fairy griffin along the way, and after this I should never have to go on another metal run again. So to celebrate this glorious achievement, I decided to wage war against the degenerate berry bushes. Then my newly tamed griffin and I flew around trying to tame as many egg layers as I could, because I really need to finish up taming on the egg layers if I want even a chance to beat this mod. So Mr. Griffin and I flew across the entire eastern seaboard and witnessed a mere mortal being put in a spin cycle. So in response, I tamed up another fairy RG, bullied this Fable Bronto for some free loot, flew another 500 miles across the ocean, and ended this fabled PT's free trial of life. Apparently, this upset Mr. Dinotherium, and, well, let's just say he won't be upset anymore. So with no more degenerates to ruin my day, Mr. Griffin and I flew 500 miles across the map, and then I almost got disintegrated by a nightmare wyvern, a tier 11 boss who, I am not exaggerating, could end my entire bloodline. So I made a strategic retreat, and tamed another fairy RG that wasn't surrounded by bloodthirsty heathens. And to start off day 54, and waged war against a mythic trike. It wasn't very much of a war. So once I was done harassing the locals, I spent the next 10 minutes flying around with Mr. Griffin, trying to find more shadow turkeys to tame, but as you could probably guess, my luck was non-existent. So instead, I ended this mythic RG subscription to life, flew around for another 5 minutes, shot a fairy RG with a bedtime story, gave it over 500 calories worth of kibble, and witnessed a legendary Indom terrorize a mere mortal. Back at base, I was so happy with how the day went that I AFK'd for 10 minutes. I probably went to go grab food. But as the sun rose on day 55, I organized my loot to calm my raging OCD, crafted more fairy kibble, and flew off in search of a fairy wyvern. These very pink dragons were not only faster than my griffin, but can actually do some good damage. So once I arrived at the north, I shot this man right between the eyes, gave it some kibble while the penguin population was having their annual civil war, and now I have myself a fairy wyvern that did almost 4k damage unleveled. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of hoping for more, but it's better than anything I have currently. So once I returned to base, I started crafting my very first batch of legendary kibble. This was absolutely massive, because the legendary dinos have the ability to inflict the bleed effect. And while the top tier bosses are immune to such bleed, the demonic and angelic dinos aren't immune to it. So I began the search for a good legendary dino, also witnessed a nightmare boss nuke a civilian, and spent the first half of day 56 flying around pondering my very existence, and becoming public enemy number 1 to the wyvern population. Once I was done making my daring escape, I spotted a mythic PT trying to alert the dino police, and I really didn't want to be found out. So I did some 360 no-scopes, gave it some mythic kibble, and just like that, my record is now squeaky clean. To celebrate this glorious achievement, I knocked out another fairy wyvern, this one being a level 170, which puts my current one to absolute shame. So I teleported back home, I made 12 whole fairy kibble that I forgot to record, gave this wyvern a 5-star meal, and bullied this ankylo for existing. After that, I really didn't do anything for the rest of day 56. But to start off day 57, I gave this legendary Carno the best bedtime story, fed it some breakfast, and now it will lay eggs for me. Circle of life right there. Moving on, I continued my quest for more legendary and fabled dinos to tame, bullied this astral Argy for the crime of not being useful, used my very non-cheaty dino finder to track down another legendary PT, shot this man right in its frontal lobe, gave it some kibble, and heard the sound of a spirit dino waging war with the locals. Yeah, I think I'm gonna stay away from that one. Moving on, I continued to look for even more legendary egg layers, and while searching, Ark itself started to break down. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that one. Back at base, I made the shocking discovery that some of my egg layers were not females, and since the male species can't exactly lay eggs, I had to escort this fabled PT from the premises. So to make up for this slight oversight, I tamed another legendary PT that was indeed female. Then I flew on over to this mythical PT, but this time the PT had a bodyguard, a spirit jerboa bodyguard. Yeah, you can probably guess how this went. Whoa! Well, that was fun. Thankfully for me, I had a spare fairy wyvern, so I flew on back over, determined to tame this mythical PT. But unfortunately for me, history has a way of repeating itself. No! Whoa! Yeah, I'm having a fun time right now. So I once again flew on over to the mythical PT that was indirectly responsible for killing two of my best tames. So I decided to be not stubborn for once, and tamed a mythical PT that wasn't being bodyguarded by a roided out jerboa. Then Mr. Knockoff Maywing and I flew across the entire map at warp speed, tamed another mythical PT, crafted over 100 mythical narcotics, and made all the mythic bullets. On the morning of day 59, I still had a lot of taming ahead of me, and I know this is starting to get a little repetitive, so instead of just doing the same commentary over and over, I'm gonna summarize these next few days in the form of a montage.
Dying. Help me.
And as the sun set on day 59, I realized that I really need a stronger tame than just my griffin. I needed something with a bit more muscle. So I made some legendary and shadow kibble, and as the sun rose on day 60, I spotted my new powerhouse, a shadow gorilla. So after shooting this man with the most mythic of bullets, I gave him his preferred kibble, and this man was a massive disappointment. He was doing barely any damage, his AoE attack was straight up trash, but at least he could jump high? Yeah, this was a waste of time. Well, I guess the only thing left to do now is to finish up taming the remaining egg layers. But apparently, Ark decided that I'm done existing and sent me to the Shadow Realm. Fantastic. So after that impromptu bath and fire, crafted some elemental kibble, tracked down another Meguana by my own merits, and now everything's back to normal. And now that I completed the quest for another Meguana, I spent the rest of day 61 taming even more egg-laying dinos. And I know this is really boring to watch, but trust me, things are gonna get real spicy soon. So after ethically recruiting this fairy RG to join my tribe, I kinda just flew around for the rest of day 61, because brain rot was a very real thing for me. But as the sun was setting, it was time to take my first step into the endgame, by knocking out and taming this legendary stego. If you're someone who watched my last playthrough on Primal Chaos, then you know this man is an absolute unit. And that's because stegos have natural damage resistance, making them perfect for my next goal, which is to tame my very own demonic and celestial dinos. The only problem is that I would need demonic and angelic hide to make the saddles, of which I have a whopping 0. So on day 63, I started my ascension into the endgame of this mod by flying around mindlessly for 10 whole minutes, crafted 7 whole demonic kibble, and found a demonic reaper queen. From what I remember, these things are an absolute menace to society, and thanks to my very balanced sniper rifle, I was able to put this man to sleep at lightning speed, give him some high-calorie kibble, and now I have my first demonic dino. The bad news, however, is that I couldn't exactly ride it just yet because I was short on hide. The good news is that I don't need to ride it for it to do some damage. And with that demonstration of power, I think it's time to fight my first true demonic dino, the Thorny Dragon. For this fight, I thought I could get away with using my legendary stego. However, the moment this fight started, I already lost. The stego's bleed wasn't doing nearly enough damage, and due to the mythic potions having a cooldown, I couldn't heal the stego fast enough. Oh yeah. No! So yeah, I failed the initial fight. But I had a plan B, if you would, which involved giving my Reaper its very own mythic health potion and sending it to fight the Thorny Dragon alone. But as the saying goes, everybody has a plan, until they're punched in the mouth. No! Dude, why doesn't my whistles work? Well, that was fun. That was my first demonic dino and it lasted 10 whole seconds. Can I go play Minecraft now? Back at base, I was able to make 7 more demonic kibble, down another demonic reaper, tamed it, and challenged the Thorny Degenerate to a rematch. It went as well as you expected it to. I swear, this ascended AI couldn't find its way out of a wet paper bag, and all of this made it very clear that I'm gonna have to rethink my strategy. So I tracked down a legendary wyvern, shot it with some of the best bedtime stories, gave it 1,000 calories in kibble, trained it in the art of bullying mythical dinos, and settled the score with the bane of my existence. Hello, friend. Well, that went better than expected. Why didn't I do this from the start? Anyways, with my enemy now thoroughly vanquished, I decided to actually tame a demonic thorny dragon, but I still need more demonic hide. So my fairy griffin and I tracked down a demonic thorny dragon, shot it with a bedtime story right in his frontal lobe, and now I got myself a flaming lizard that I still can't use. So to solve this minor inconvenience, I challenged this demonic dilo to a 1v1 duel, and let's just say he wasn't exactly happy about it. Thankfully, this legendary dragon was too fast and too furious for this mere mortal, and I was able to get 61 demonic hide, which was still not enough. So I fought another demonic thorny dragon, and it felt so good to get my revenge after losing 2 reapers to these guys. And after harvesting the demonic hide from this willing volunteer, I finally had enough hide to make the saddle. It may have taken me 65 plus days, but I finally had my first true powerhouse tame, who was able to shred right through primal dinos, turning this aloe with over 18 million health into a well-done dino. And to keep my good mood going, I tamed another thorny dragon, this time around a male one, so I could have a constant supply of thorny dragons. Back at base, I got the 2 thorny dragons to meet each other, and they hit things off with each other real quick. So with nothing else to do until I get some imprinted thorny dragons, I think it's finally time to get some payback on this game. Yeah, that's not good damage. I thought this guy was going to be the key to beating this mod, but instead I am completely whelmed. So I decided to mix things up a little and tame this angelic griffin. So I shot this man with several sleepy time bullets, fed it the most angelic of kibble, shoved an XP potion right down the esophagus, and this griffin, to put it in simple terms, is the most broken dino in this mod. The amount of spirit bombs this griffin shoots out makes it deal millions of damage in like 5 seconds. Add in the fact that it can carpet bomb entire civilizations, and this angelic griffin is the best dino for farming blood and hide. So for the rest of day 68, my anti-stealth bomber and I waged war against the degenerates of the island, and absolutely obliterated an origin Yudi. And he's not even imprinted yet. Yeah, this man's kind of OP. So OP that I will be using him for the rest of this video shamelessly. And I will fear no dino that stands in my way. Okay then. What? It's summoned in! What the? Well, that was fun. Totally didn't almost die or anything, but by killing Mr. Artifacto, I was gifted with all the artifacts, which are used in crafting summoners for the rest of the remaining bosses. So I hope you enjoyed seeing Mr. Artifacto, cause you're gonna be seeing a lot more of him. So with that exposition out of the way, I fertilized my crops like the humble farmer I am, collected my mandatory berry tax from the local bush population, and started off day 69 by continuing to terrorize the local degenerates of the world, tamed another angelic griffin so I can have a breeding pair, got the 2 lovebirds acquainted with each other, and spent the remainder of day 69 trying to farm this ramshackle loot boss. The way this man is supposed to work is pretty much the same as in Primal Fear, with the main goal of getting this man below 10% of his lifespan, and after a certain amount of time, the ramshackle loot boss should advance into the next tier. The keyword there is should, because I spent 10 whole minutes letting this loot boss spit straight flames on my Thorny dragon, but he refused to level up. Remember everybody, this is the ascended version of this game, where everything works as intended. So with that riveting gameplay now over with, I decided to 1v1 this origin raptor, and this flamin' lizard does some good damage, which is exactly what I need for the endgame bosses. So for the rest of day 70, I continued to terrorize the local population, farmed some low-budget polymer from the Badlands, crafted some origin boss summoners, and spent the rest of day 70 fighting some origin bosses. You can't run away from the flames, son, the flames! So, how was the montage? You guys like it? I don't care. On the morning of day 71, I continued to become public enemy number 1 to all origin bosses. Honestly, this is starting to become kinda sad. I mean, just to look at the man. He can't even get close to me. And here I thought the origin bosses would actually be a challenge. Oh, okay. Never mind. This might be a problem. And it does bleed? Oh, okay, yep, this is gonna be a fight. This takes reduced damage. So, That was fun. The fight honestly wasn't really that difficult. The only reason why it was even hard to begin with was because of the Dodo Reaper's stupid damage reduction. But what's done is done. So after leveling up my newly raised angelic griffin, I started off day 72 by flying across the map at warp speed, deleted this origin RG from the server, and turned Mr. Artifacto the Stronger into Artifacto the Deceased. Back at base, I leveled up another newly raised RG, shredded this origin boss in 3.5 seconds, and now it was time to fight my first tier 6 boss. Please don't let this be a mistake. It's a Ferox! So, that was easy. And now I have one singular angelic boss soul, which is exactly what I need in order to fight Draconus. Unfortunately for me, I also need the demonic boss soul, which requires me to fight all the origin bosses again. So, cue the montage.
Man, I'm dead.
Well, that was pretty grindy. And now we can finally fight the demonic boss, and hopefully it's just as easy as the angelic one. Okay, never mind. This is gonna be difficult. Whoa! What the? He has 1 billion! Did an update go out to make them tougher? Because I kind of like it, but it's horrifying for my... It's just a sea of numbers and flames. I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine! Get out of the fire, get out of the fire, get out of the fire. Ow, 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 ow. Alright. This should be the last little bit. Come on. Woo! So, that was awesome. That might have just been the very first boss fight in this mod to actually get my adrenaline going, which also makes me a little nervous about how difficult the higher tier bosses are gonna be. But after that riveting fight, I decided to take a break from all the boss fighting, so I crafted some demonic kibble and set out to tame a demonic reaper. So I tracked it down, shot it in the face with the most high quality bedtime story, and this man was very underwhelming. I love this game. So on the morning of day 78, I summoned in the remaining origin bosses, deleted them from existence, crafted the Draconus boss summoner, and let's get this going. Oh, what are you? Too brilliant! Oh, heck no. No, I'm stuck in him. I'm stuck. Stop pooping! Oh, what? There's phases? I need to go with the big bombs. Did I actually just get launched into the ocean? Oh, I crashed. Oh, you're alive. Okay, that was a interesting fight. But hey, we did it. And now I can finally move on to the next tier of bosses. However, I first needed to fight more origins. Can you tell how excited I am? Yeah, I think I'm just gonna skip through these origin fights. Nothing really important happened except me getting this nightmare potion. I also tried getting some good saddles from this ramshackle loot boss. So after several minutes of my Reaper and I getting turned into a crispy bacon, I got the ramshackle loot boss to the highest tier possible, shared with it some of my flaming hot takes, and got nothing of value. Fantastic. And the rest of the day wasn't any better. So I decided to take out my frustrations on Mr. Artifacto. Then I bullied several of his cousins, tried once again to get a good griffin saddle, but as usual, I got nothing. And this trend continued for the rest of day 80, where I took out my frustrations on some local degenerates, hunted down some Fable dinos because I was running out of Fable blood, checked in to see what origin bosses I needed to summon the demonic boss again, because in order to fight the spirit and chaos bosses, I needed more origin tokens. So I summoned in some origin bosses into the world, ended their free trial of life, got some very OP saddles, crafted the demonic boss summoner, and ended this man's entire career in 10 seconds. Yeah, this angelic griffin's kinda busted. On a completely different note though, I can now fight the spirit and chaos bosses. And after clearing out some local degenerates, it was now time to fight the spirit boss. Please don't be something stupid. He does so much damage.
Man, I'm dead.
Well, that was easy. And now I can finally start taming some spirit dinos. However, the resources required to make the spirit kibble is, well, not very user-friendly. So I spent some time just gathering as much blood as I could, bullied some primal dinos along the way, crafted the chaos boss summoner, and completely obliterated the man in 10 seconds. Riveting gameplay right there. But what's done is done, and now I can finally tame some spirit and chaos dinos. For my first tame, I decided to go with the chaos griffin, which in theory should be leagues stronger than the angelic griffin. So after shooting this man with several bedtime stories, I went back to base thinking I had everything I needed to make the kibble. But unfortunately, spirit and chaos kibble needs demonic and angelic eggs. So in response to this minor dilemma, I launched a massive operation, taming every single demonic and angelic dino I could find that didn't require my entire life savings. Long story short, I pretty much just tamed a bunch of demonic dilos, sentenced them to the egg machine, then I tamed the entire demonic dodo population, finally crafted some chaos kibble, and tamed my very first chaos griffin. I had high hopes for this man, with it being the strongest tier dino I could tame, but instead, I was left with nothing but crippling depression. Yeah, that damage is not gonna cut it. So I ended up going back to using the angelic griffin, and just look at that damage. In this minor display of power got me thinking, what if I try to tame the spirit dinos instead? So I went on another taming expedition, with the target being the angelic Argies, because spirit kibble requires all the angelic eggs. And I am so happy that I got this fabricated sniper rifle, because it pretty much just makes taming dinos an absolute meme. But to change things up a little, I decided to end this Origin Trike's free trial of life, claimed the souls of several angelic dinos, integrated the very willing volunteers, and tracked down a Chaos Dodo Rex. Based on the information I got from my very reliable sources, this tame is an absolute beast. So while waiting for my chaotic friend to tame, I claimed even more angelic souls from these very willing volunteers, sent a origin RG to the afterlife, spiritually assaulted the primal population for the most primal of blood, and honestly, this angelic griffin is just a cheat code at this point. The only downside is that it takes increased damage due to being a flyer, and also lagging my entire game anytime I attack. Thankfully, my game didn't lag out while I was fighting this bony gentleman, and while this boss hits like a runaway semi-truck, it fell just like all the rest. And for my reward, I got some primal bones, which are used to summon in nightmare bosses. Isn't that nice? Apparently, the game wasn't a fan of this though, because when I tried fighting another primal resurrected boss, my game timed out. Fantastic. And when I spawned back in, my angelic griffin was still alive, but I didn't get any of the boss tributes. I'm having a fun time right now. But once I got over my crippling depression, I paid a visit to my farm and harvested over 20 pounds worth of crops, and crafted 7 chaos kibble. It was now time to tame the chaos dodo rex. So I flew on over, gave this man over 5,000 calories in kibble, and this man is a certified menace to society. Fully leveled, the Chaos Dodo Rex has over 20 million health, does decent bite damage, and his special attack is spitting hot takes to destroy the degenerates of the world. Only downside is that its attack noises causes me physical pain, but that's why we have volume control. Back at base, I gave my newly tamed friend a glorious name of Chicken Little, fought more origin bosses, and unlike my angelic griffin, the Chaos Dodo Rex doesn't cause my game to lag out, and it also does some insane damage, which will come in handy for a certain death knight. So Mayhem and I flew around the entire Ark, ridding society of the filthy heathens, raided some beaver dams that were overdue on their tax returns, fought another Mr. Artifacto who, upon death, went Super Saiyan. This could have went south real quick, but somehow Mr. Chaos Griffin barely survived. Thank you, game. However, even though my griffin survived, I wasn't about to let that slide. So Chicken Little and I paid a visit to Mr. Artifacto, and after a few minutes of spitting straight flames, Mr. Artifacto was now the deceased. Feeling real good about my life right now, I decided to fight another Artifacto. Then I fought his extended cousin, and sent it to the grave. Day 88 continued the trend of purging the degenerates of the world. Then I returned to base, crafted 7 whole spirit kibble, and summoned in the angelic boss. The fight didn't last long. And following this trend of very easy bosses, I formed more origin bosses for their tokens, and flew on over to a spirit jerboa. So I shot this spiritual individual right in the dome, gave it some spirit kibble, and this jerboa is an absolute monster. Just look at how quick it shreds right through the demonic boss. And it doesn't crash my game. There is absolutely no way I can lose now. Why did I allow myself to get happy? Nothing ever good happens when I feel joy in this game. I guess this isn't the end of the world though, because jerboas do only take 1 kibble to tame, but this is still incredibly annoying. So after farming some crystal, I was able to tame another spirit jerboa that had some insane stats. Tracked down another spirit jerboa of the opposite sex, which means I can now create my army of walking nukes. Back at base, I was able to get the 2 jerboas to hit it off at first sight, crafted more origin boss summoners, fought the Dodo Reaper in a thrilling battle, and cast my enemy down on day 90. For my reward, I now have my very first imprinted spirit jerboa, so I fed it several vitamins to boost its strength, crafted the Draconus boss summoner, and sentenced this jerboa to trial by fire. Oh, look at how fast that's melting down. I will say, this is going so much better. He summoned every origin. Okay, well, if you wanna know what happened, I got the soul, okay? I beat him, okay? Okay? Well, that was fun. And now, the only thing stopping me from fighting the Death Knight was collecting all the nightmare tokens. So, let's get this going. Alright, it's go time. Ow, 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 ow. Come on, die, 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 die. Oh! We are gonna fight Rex. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're here. We can now finally fight the Death Knight. However, there is one thing I still wanted to try, which is getting a good jerboa saddle for my army, and the only way I can even get one of those is by fighting the ramshackle loot boss. Yeah, I think you can see where this is going. Long story short, I spent the next 4 days trying to get a good jerboa saddle, but the only thing I got was depression. So on day 100, I assembled my jerboa army, and my strategy was to have the initial wave of jerboas soften him up a little. And should my initial wave fail, which is very likely, I would have some backup spear jerboas ready to go. All of my work this past 100 days has led to this moment. So I summoned in the Death Knight, and things were off to a great start. Explosions were happening left and right, and I was feeling real good. And then it happened. I crashed. And while I was relogging, one of my remaining jerboas decided to do several 360 no-scopes on the Death Knight, and he was all like, bruh, and the jerboa was all like, sup. And when I got back into the fight, the Death Knight was defeated. Thank you all for watching. Hey guys, look, I have another Death Knight summoner. Maybe this time I can finally get some good footage. Yeah, I spawned in another summoner. Judge me all you want, but I am getting the fight I was promised. So, let's try that again. Alright, we have him. We have him. We got him. GG! Well, that was anticlimactic. But hey, we did it. We were able to beat the Death Knight twice, one of which was a totally legit way. And with this victory, I can now finally close the door on Primal Chaos. For now, at least. So, everybody, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.